I'm Rick Morris, but your question on the future of the Rubicon is a difficult question. Some of it is out of our control, and both technology-wise and politically and environmentally. If it doesn't rain again, if we don't get a snowfall, then the fire season isn't going to end. And it may not happen next year that we can come in here. Hopefully we get a good snow. And hopefully there's water in the river and the trees are still green. But that's out of our control. We're in a drought cycle, and we'll see what happens.
What were some of your most memorable moments here being in Rubicon Springs?
Memorable moments in Rubicon Springs. When I was about 5 years old, my father and his friends did a first snow of the season trip through here, and we spent the night in Wentworth Springs Hotel, and came down the slab that was covered in ice and snow. Did you come through the slab yesterday? Well, you were at night. You didn't get to see it.
We did it this morning.
Oh, you went back there? Oh, okay, yeah. Well, try that in ice and snow. So they had chains on all four coming down that. And my mother was terrified, but the part that was the most memorable on that trip was what became called the mud hole, was frozen. But it was too thick to hold the Jeep, so they fell through it. But the ice was too thick to just break with the Jeep. And so a friend of mine named Bill Powell, a friend of my father's, was on the hood of my father's Jeep with a double-bladed axe chopping the ice. And I was in the seat, standing in the seat, watching the ice flow in and out of the doors of the Jeep, while my father kicked the chunks of ice out from the pedals to keep driving. That was a pretty strong memory. And then when we got here to the hotel location, we rolled a big rock off of near where the kitchen is there for the jamboree onto the river, and it just went clunk and didn't crack it or move it at all. So it was pretty cold. That's one of my high moments of here. And then having to, in those days you had, in grammar school, show and tell, and everybody had their turn at telling stories of what they had done the last weekend or something. And on more than one occasion after a Jeep trip and me telling about it to the kids in school, the teachers would call my mother to see what was wrong with me because I was fantasizing. So the Rubicon has that memories for me.
What are some things that you would like to see happen? And this necessarily doesn't have to go in the film, it's just kind of us chatting.
Well,
as far as like progression or things that you'd like
well, there needs to be decisions made upon what the group, the property owners, what they want to see happen. And if they want to develop it into a more commercial operation, That's one of the directions. Or try to keep it more similar to what has been going on. When my father got involved in it, it was not, his intention was never to make money with it. His intention was to keep the property and keep it open for people to come and enjoy it. It was not to be a profit center. So I tend to be in that direction. If we try to make it into a profit center, not only would it change the atmosphere like we're seeing right here today, but it will create a different relationship with the county, who has, we have been walking in sort of a gray area of regulated, unregulated activities. And because it was not a for-profit type, I mean, it's technically a company, it's not a non-profit, but the intention of it, the business plan, has not been to see how much money we can make. It's been focused on keeping the place open, and that's a different philosophy in that sense. But if we go to trying to make as much money as we can, then that puts the county into a different position of dealing with this. That would be my concern, and that we aren't prepared for that. The other, technology-wise, very, very soon, we are going to have electric Jeeps. We're going to have autonomous electric Jeeps, and that could change quite a bit of what happens here.
Are you pro for the electric kind of station in the beginning of, if there were to be one?
No, I don't see how we're going to not have electric. The manufacturers are charging ahead with that. It's at this point, I think it's somewhat greedy on their part, because what they see is being able to change the automobile stock and get rid of all the old cars, so we have to buy new cars. And they see, because it's cheaper to build an electric vehicle, so their profit margins are going to improve, and that's what's driving them. So I don't know we have an option.
So you see it kind of evolve with it, figure out what works best for you guys.
Right.
And the property. Since it's not...
Now, it could be that something like Jeeping hangs on to its retro feel, and we could be in a position of certain times of the month people are allowed to drive their gas-guzzling vehicles. And that's when we would have a jamboree. That probably will be a few years down the road, but it could go quick. Because Jeep already talked about building a charging station at Loon Lake. That was, I had understood it would happen this year, or last year, something like that. But that got slowed down because of the pandemic. So we'll have to see how that happens. If that was the case, we might want to look into having our own charging station down here.
Then, how would you think your parents would feel about the technology kind of evolving where it isn't, you put the term retro, but now since it's kind of evolving towards that, where maybe there's need for maybe there's need for like I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe they're to like sustain a beautiful environment and keep the upkeep. You know, how do you think your parents would, kind of, since they were the originals?
Well, I mean, there was the primary objective was to keep the property, and obviously keep it in a certain pristine level. The property owners and the users and the Jamboree has been pretty strong with that, have spent a lot of effort keeping it clean. And so we would want that to continue. The river is controlled by SMUD, and so if, I'm not sure on the rules if SMUD decides not to let water through anymore, but I believe that they're required by law. But if we go into a major drought cycle where it doesn't rain this year, that could all change. So I don't know. I'm not sure that I thought that this would continue as it is. There was a cycle where the manufacturers of Jeep were not very committed to the product, and were not supporting Jeep trips and jamborees and all that sort of stuff. And the latest reincarnation of Chrysler Jeep is heavily supporting the development of Jeep vehicles. There's so many models now that I don't know them all, or didn't even try. And how long they will continue that development is hard to know. We see people that are very uncomfortable being here where there's no internet connection. We now have cars that have, and Jeeps with satellite connection so that they can continue to keep connected. With the bringing in of autonomous vehicles, they're satellite connected, and that will change the atmosphere. One of the enjoyable things here is not to both have to have my cell phone going or watching other people pretending to have a conversation while they're looking at their cell phone. Nothing is more irritating about that. And here we're actually having real conversations. It's a refreshing. How long that'll continue once the cell phone companies are figuring out how to broadcast it to us everywhere, that could change the atmosphere. It might not be fun anymore, because there won't be this camaraderie of get together because everybody's looking at their phones.
Like the advancement of technology, when your parents were starting this, do they have any stories that are like kind of like upbeat or fun that you can remember them kind of expressing, like maybe they went on a trip somewhere, and sorry I'm kind of like everywhere, but I feel like it kind of like buffers, kind of like changes.
Well, I mean, one of the big is that sense of having to be connected, where
like did they ever go on?
We used to go on. We went to Death Valley for a week or 2 weeks, and nobody was ever calling on the phone because there wasn't a phone. Professionally, as an archaeologist, I would go in the field for 10 days with my crew and not have any phone calls. I had the instructions from the office, and that was that. And I'll see you in 10 days. Nowadays, the client wants to hear once or twice a day how the project's going. And that occurs in all the fields nowadays. And that's a huge change in how we do business and how you do things.
There's no time to think.
The what?
There's like no time because the communication is like instant. There's no time to like think.
No, and your sense of responsibility and authority is diluted completely.
It's like you have to know instant.
Right, and also because your supervisor has checked in with you, you're not responsible anymore. You've passed that on. So it's,
So, how do you feel about like the? And you're welcome to leave whenever you want. I feel like, whenever you feel uncomfortable, I'm always down to, obviously you're going to be able to see what you have. Like,
well, I mean, if you got something we can talk about, let's do it.
well, I'm naturally just interested in kind of like trying to.
I mean,
Now that like the youth are a little bit different. The youth are a little bit more. There are more of them coming in every year, and the shareholders for Rubicon Soda Springs are trying to figure out how to like maneuver when it comes to like you're talking about like folks bringing in bigger tires and kind of doing that.
I think that's left. That's not really an issue anymore, because the trail, or let's say it's no longer a property owner's issue, because the trail is officially a county road, and they're maintaining that. They're responsible for that, not us. And the trail has changed and become much, much wider because of the larger vehicles.
Today, when Christian and I were driving, there's like he said that things were narrower, how you were saying, and like certain trees, it's like you had to pull in, your mirrors or that kind of thing, dude, and just squeeze by.
Oh, I remember making choices on which side I was going to get scraped because there was no space for not to. Where today those areas are all gone, and not coming back. And the little vehicles, these razors that I don't know if you've seen any of those buzzing around. They're like golf carts, and they negotiate the trail considerably different. They bounce over things. And the county has to deal with how that changes the road. And one issue that we need to be concerned about as property owners is the county's plans for the road. One issue is the long-term plans of the county on what they want to do with the road. This last fire season, I'm sure, has suggested to them that they need an egress route out of Lake Tahoe. And obviously they wouldn't have the funding for this year to pave the road, but I'm sure it's been discussed. The evacuation out of South Lake Tahoe this summer was not pleasant, and it could have been a horrible disaster. And as a planner within the city or within the county, you would be, how do we avoid that? And egress is how you avoid that. So we'll have to see how that works out. Now, one thing professionally, I'm interested in the archaeology and the history here. We have a considerable prehistoric presence here, and I have recorded a number of prehistoric sites on our property, and I will continue that process as I have time. Yeah.
I filmed the old cabin, like from the drone earlier, and I was like, Christian stopped by, and I was like, oh, could I film? And it's pretty nice to see from up above. Like I was just, surrounded by all the woods and just kind of.
Well, like right over there on the top of that hill, on that flat area, just above the river, there's a prehistoric site there. There are a number of flakes and cores. A flake is a piece of stone that they have taking a larger piece, which is a core, and you flake off a smaller piece, which can be used as a tool to cut with. And there's a pretty extensive site up there.
Were you up there this morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw you come down.
Yeah, and also I found another little site on the other side over here, and out near where the sewer treatment plant is, there's a prehistoric site there.
We drove by that area. Past the meadow.
No, right where the sewage treatment plant is, where the leach lines are. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, the big green lines.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
You go upslope from there, and there's a nice big site there with lots of stone tools.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you take them under like a microscope or anything? And kind of...
Well, I'm taking pictures of them, but otherwise they're left there. I don't have a microscope with me. Now, did you see the grinding stones near the cabin there?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And those could be, oh, yuck. Those could be 3,000 years old. And that's pretty cool.
It's neat to be able to see just find these things like the natural environment.
And I'm always looking down. That's part of my.
Yeah.
There is
sounds. We were at the turquoise. I think the blue. I'm like a little colorblind, so the blue bridge earlier. Maybe it's turquoise, maybe it's green. It was over there. Where was it? It was like it had to have been a blue bridge. And we were just crossing it, and there was just like these little bubbles that were coming up, and those are also like the natural carbon hydrate.
I mean, the bridge that crossed the river?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's green, yeah.
Green, sorry.
Yeah, right. And yes, well, you have those bubbles can be both from just mud deposits, and the weight of the vehicle shifted everything. Let those air come up. There's a fault line that runs through here, which is part of why we have the springs. And there are various smaller springs that we don't even know about that can bubble at various times.
Is it true that that if you're new here, you should take a sip of the spring water?
I don't know. It's tastes kind of like club soda, tonic water somewhere in there. It's not unpleasant if you're prepared for not a water taste. It doesn't taste like water in that sense. It has a sulfur little taste with bubbly and club soda-ish sort of. Goes well with gin. I would like to see it that we explore it as a property owners to bottle the water, and I think it could be a premium sort of
limited reserve.
yeah,
edition.
right. Yeah, right. Now I think that we could, with the right marketing, as we're going in these drought cycles, water becomes very precious. And so the reason to charge so much becomes obvious.
It's like the one-for-one kind of thing.
Yeah,
too.
right.
You purchase this product, and then we can help, the environment that we have here, like all the trees.
Right, and also back in the 1890s, the Rubicon water was sold at Tahoe City and other places by the drink.
That's pretty cool to think of. It's like a natural, just water fountain.
Right. So we have a built-in marketing devices that were already created for us. Because all we'd have to do is reprint the same ads. And we could, work with a local distiller or brewer to make a limited edition beer made with Rubicon water.
That's thinking right there.
Yeah,
Cool.
or a cocktail. We could come up with cocktail tips on how to make good drinks with Rubicon water.
I'm a bartender. I was a bartender for 9 years, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean the catch is we have to figure out a way to sanitize the water and to make it so that we can legally sell it. In the past, that was going to be an expensive process, but we have to in my view, get out of thinking about it as water, but thinking about it as a premium item. And that we don't want to have truckloads of it.
Scarcity.
Right.
And it's like definitely like you're saying, like premium luxury. It's kind of nice. Just, come here, visit. You don't necessarily need to
Right. I have where Donner State Park is?
Yes.
Back in 1902, I think. I'm not sure on the dates there. The guy who had that monument built that's next to the highway had a fundraising program with little bottles, about that big, with a little piece of wood in it. And it was sealed in wax and has a serial number on it. And they were supposed to be pieces of the Donner cabin. And he sold those. I have one. It's one of my precious items. I worked on the archaeology dig there. So.
That's pretty special, then.
Yeah, right. Pretty special. But there's no reason that we can't also create some specialness.
I feel like as each year passes, and it's here, and new things are being built, and especially since you guys use the timber, all the timber that is sourced locally, or it's not locally, but it's sourced from here. You know, you build the cabins. You know.
Well, that's building the cabins is pushing the county into certain issues with allowing us to build or not build and not having the correct permits. So those are pretty gray areas. And how far they're going to let us push the envelope on how much we build here before this is a development issue. And will force the hand of the county to have to treat us as a real estate development.
Right.
And
you guys aren't striving for, or you don't want that at all.
well, if that's where we want to go, we have to be prepared for that, and not pretend that it won't happen if that's where we're going. There is private land between here and Tahoe.
This is private land, though, right?
Right, but there's other private land that could be developed. And that could be, as Tahoe runs out of, the price of land at Tahoe is nuts. And as California's real estate market is bizarre and is filling up. Do you know where Cameron Park is, El Dorado Hills? When we used to go on Jeep trips and drive up to Lake Tahoe, there was a sign that said Cameron Park, and it was stuck in the middle of a big pile of sagebrush and poison ivy, or poison oak. And my father used to laugh about it. There was no houses, no buildings, nothing, just selling real estate. Now that's full of houses and structures.
And you were saying that your space, like where you live now, is like a McMansion or something like that, where...
No, at Tahoe, right, yeah. So we have that sort of pressure that not next year, but in years ahead, could force the county in different directions. And we have to be prepared for that.
And do you have any words for, that you'd like to say?
Well, I've been saying...
Oh, totally, yeah. But I mean, just without me asking a question, is there anything that's been on, like, your mind to kind of talk about, or, like, You don't have to answer.
No. They're serving stew over there now, so...
There you go.
All right.
Oh, perfect. I'm sorry to keep you.
Oh, that's all right.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if we said anything that was meaningful enough.
No.